Okay, so this is number 7 in my series. So some years ago now, there was a behavioural psychologist called Richard Thaler, and he invented the idea, or developed, sorry, the idea of nudge theory. So if any of you have not come across that, so this idea that we can do quite subtle and small things in our environment, and that influences people to behave in ways that people are deemed to be more socially acceptable, if you like. And so I'll just give you some classic example of organ donation. So the idea that originally you had to opt in, and then countries like Spain developed this idea that you opt out. So the idea is, if you had an accident, there's an assumption that if your organs are, appropriate for transplantation, that that's the default position. And in fact, Spain's got one of the most successful organ donations systems in the world. Then there's this idea. There was in a grocer's shop, they put arrows on the floor which sort of pointed towards the vegetables. And what they actually found was that people were buying more vegetables. Of course, what we don't know from that is whether people were actually eating them when they got them home or not. But that's another matter. And then there's another one, which is one of the most famous ones, actually, I think, where in the bottom of men's urinals, I think they in Porcelain they had like a target, and what they found was men subliminally at some level were urinating a bit more accurately, so there's less urine on the floor. So these are all kind of examples of nudging, but one of the kind of nudges that I'm particularly interested in is this idea that events in the world are constructed in the way of a crisis. Presumably, if we think it's a crisis, then there's an imperative, there's an urgency to act. And as someone who works in education, this is a very familiar territory. So I can remember, for example, there was a study that showed boys reading wasn't as good as people expected it to be. And we're invited to believe that was a crisis. I mean, one way around that, of course, is just to lower your expectations. So it's less of a problem. And there's also one more recently that about to do with kids' capacity to know their tables. But obviously that seems a strange thing to me when so many children now are so competent using all sorts of digital forum. Chances are, if they want to know what 7 sevens are, they could probably look it up pretty quickly. So I'm not sure my life is massively enhanced because I know that 6 fours are 24, but I mean that's anyway. One of the key sort of nudges, I think, is this idea of a crisis. And I was struck recently by a Colgate advert, and in this advert they say that in your mouth there's loads of hidden bacteria, and I thought this was like a classic sort of nudge, really, because there's 3 things about that, or a few things about that, really. First, of course you've got bacteria in your mouth. If we didn't have bacteria, our alimentary canal wouldn't function, as would lots of other parts of our body. Just wouldn't function if we didn't have, we weren't hosting bacteria. The second thing, the fact they're hidden, are they meaning you can't see them? True, of course, because they're microscopic. So unless you've got some sort of bionic eye, you ain't going to see them, are you? You might see the effects of bacteria in some way, but you ain't going to see the bacteria themselves. They're too small. But I think the key thing here in terms of nudging, though, is that by saying they're hidden, we're invited to believe that these bacteria are malevolent little feckers and they're out to get you. Unless, of course, you use Colgate. So I think this is just a classic example of something that's actually quite harmless, quite innocent, being dressed up as in sort of manner of a crisis, and then we're being nudged to buy and presumably use the Colgate